The big news, WWE Monday Night Raw is moving come January 2025. The rumors have been going on for a while. Where is it going? Amazon Prime? Is it going to Fox? Is it going to HBO Max? Finally, we have our answer. WWE is moving Monday Night Raw to Netflix. And part of this huge deal and a huge day is it's more than just that, but on top of WWE moving Raw to Netflix, The Rock, as of today, became one of the board of directors for WWE. He acquired $30 million in stock. He's now got rights to the name The Rock 100%, all his own, as if, he didn't essentially get to use it before. I guess now on the Under Armour merchandise you see, maybe you'll see more than just a Brahma Bull, but the word The Rock as well. But on top of all of that, just a huge deal with WWE and Netflix, and it's more, like I said, than just Monday Night Raw, but it's the death of the WWE Network, and a lot of you who are watching us in the United States are going, or in the United States are wondering, what are you talking about? It's been dead for a little bit now, but the WWE Network's been going strong in other markets, India, Canada, England, other places around the world. But part of this Netflix deal, not just obviously putting Raw on Netflix for those in North America, which will actually be the first, because it's in America, Canada, and Mexico, which as of today are all watching Raw on different stations, and we'll be watching it all on Netflix next year. But in other countries, Netflix will be taking over the WWE Network duties, similar to what Peacock did in the United States. So in Canada, they won't be going to the WWE Network anymore. They'll be going to Netflix for not just Raw, but their WWE pay-per-views as well. And Brandon, I want to know your initial thoughts, because I got some thoughts on it, but I think my thoughts are it doesn't make a lot of sense to me right now, but knowing how the world is working and knowing where things are going, yes, I understand Netflix is a streaming service and USA is a regular television network that we're used to. But, the way the world is working, like we saw with the WWE Network in general, it was one of the first of its kind, and I was a little skeptical when it was brand new, but here we are now where everything's a streaming service. So, yeah, Netflix today might seem weird if Raw's on it next week, but by 2025, who the hell knows? The Super Bowl could be on Netflix by January of 2025, the way the world is going.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great deal. I love it. I think WWE is on the forefront of, they're going to start another trend. And that's the thing. You've seen a lot of other networks getting into the sports business and the sports entertainment business. Look at what CW is doing. CW, for example, has acquired some football games. For us here in Syracuse, New York, we got to watch some Syracuse games on the CW, which is nice, because you get the antenna version. If you don't have cable, you can watch it on the antenna. And then also, NASCAR in different forms is also going to be on the CW. So, that's just one example. Netflix is also, just like CW, they are trying to get into the sports business. They've been slowly but surely increasing their sports content and their sports library. So for me, it's a beautiful thing. The contract that I read, the terms are, it's going to be a $500 million per year for 10 years. So quick math there for all the math nerds out there. That is $5 billion. Which, if I did the math right, I believe that is actually more on an annual basis than what Peacock was doing in the whole the whole merger they had, yeah, the whole deal before, where I believe it was $250 million, $260 million per year. So they're doubling their money.
And that's only for Raw. Remember, too, they're not going all in on every program. SmackDown is still probably going to be on the USA Network on its own separate deal, yeah, right? This is just for Raw. And I understand it's the pay-per-views in other countries, so it's a little more than just that. But it's not WWE as a whole. They didn't just buy WWE programming for $500 million. They bought one show in the United States and a bunch of pay-per-views in the other places in the world, while things like pay-per-views locally, in America and North America, will be different, right? Will be its own deal, right? Peacock might be where they are, maybe HBO Max. Who knows where it'll be when that deal comes out? So you got the Peacock deal still going strong. You're going to have Netflix deal on its own. You've got the Fox deal, which is still running, but then next year SmackDown is moving over to, the NBC network of shows. So it could be on USA, it could be on NBC Sportsnet, it could be, or, I don't think that's a channel anymore. But
it could be on, I think it is. I think it's an NBC Sports now. I feel like they have different, different, maybe it's different cities. I'm not too privy on cable stations anymore, because like we were just talking about in the beginning, cable stations and cable in general is becoming a thing of the past. You're getting more and more people that are they're, even older folks, like the people that are in their 80s and 90s, sure, they're not probably watching Netflix and this and that. But like I'm seeing people like my parents that are in their 50s and 60s, those people are getting into the streaming business. So as those people get older, you have the generation younger than us because we're in our 30s. Everybody's sliding up the scale where we all know streaming and that's what we love and that's what we deal with. So, there's 2 points I actually want to make in addition to that Netflix deal. So here's the first thing. So the deal with NBC Universal, I believe, ends in October of this year. So WWE technically doesn't have a home for the last quarter of the year, which they've come out and said they are working on a plan for that. My expectation on that aspect of it is I feel like NBC Universal, I feel like they're going to finish the year. They'll do an extension from October to December, and then obviously December 31st they'll cease operations on that network. But I feel like they'll extend it because there's not going to be any major network that's going to just rent WWE programming for 3 months, 4 months. Like, it doesn't make sense. So I think that's the first part that, some people need to, not get too worried about, because Raw is not going to be gone for 3 months or 4 months. It's not going to happen. It'll be just fine. I think they'll probably extend the contract. They'll finish up, and then Netflix, January 1, 2025. I think it's a great idea. You mentioned the WWE Network. WWE Network, for a lot of people, including us, we were skeptical. Let's be honest. We all were as fans. But guess what? It turned into a revolution of all these other companies doing what WWE started. So for me, this is going to be a trend starter, just like it was with the WWE Network. You're going to see that. You're going to see NFL starting to do it a little bit too with Prime Video and whatnot. But I feel like that's the future of the business. I feel like cable they're going to have to either adapt or they're going to be gone. It's just how it goes. And then on the other side of it, speaking of one of the streaming platforms, I would say Peacock is also going to they're going to take a hit as well, because they only are going to have the rights to WWE's content library until 2026. So we're going to see Netflix is going to carry Raw, and then Peacock is going to have the WWE library up until 2026. And then my thought is in 2026, when that whole deal dissolves and that's over and everybody's, they're essentially, the library's up for grabs, I will not be surprised if Netflix just buys the library and brings it all together, because I think Netflix is they're really trying to adapt to the sports realm, and what better way to do it than get Raw, and then in a couple more years, they're going to acquire the library, so they'll have everything, one-stop shop for all fans.
I will say I was kind of hoping that some of this stuff was going to go to Prime, just for the sake of, I don't currently have Amazon Prime. I do enjoy it, obviously, mostly for the shipping on the Amazon.com. I don't watch any of their shows. I think it's probably the weakest, thing that they got going is their actual streaming service. So I don't really have a reason to have it right now because they don't do enough shopping. But I was looking for that reason right there. So it's essentially, I might not have Amazon Prime come next year because I'll have to have Netflix, which I do now. And Netflix was actually one of them I was thinking of getting rid of because of, I don't watch the programming on it enough. So I guess I'll have to kick it around. And I think that's the thing with all these streaming services in general, not just the shuffling that people do, but I look at it like cable television, right? Wrestling is on cable, and we're talking about wrestling going from the USA Network, which is a channel everybody has, to something niche that's like streaming, right? Not niche, but, niche-ish, right? And I think about the time that when wrestling or any programs went to the USA Network from what they were prior to that, which was free TV. And people were going, what are you talking about? Wrestling's on free TV. Now it's going to be on this cable television. It's not going to be like NBC. It's not going to be like ABC. There it goes. It's going out to business. But it's just like anything else. Like I said, do I think Netflix is what Fox is today? Absolutely not. If I could sign a deal for just this year alone, I would have my programs on NBC, CBS, ABC, Fox, all the major networks in the USA. But do I think that Netflix is going to have as much viability as Fox in 10 years? Maybe, because that's the way it's going. Like I said, Netflix isn't where the Super Bowl is going to air this year. That would be ridiculous. Netflix might be where the Super Bowl is airing in 5 years, and it won't be ridiculous, because that's essentially where this is going. So the deal today...
Well, here's the other thing, though. Here's the other thing to think about as well, because I don't know if you've seen it. I mean, I follow the market enough. I'm not a market expert by any means, anything like that. But last I knew, Netflix was losing money because of they're losing subscriptions because they've been cracking down on the whole sharing of usernames and things like that.
Yes.
So they've actually lost subscriptions that way. So I think this is an investment for them to gain some of that back and then some. So I feel like it's a big price tag, but I think overall, I think Netflix is going to be in great shape because the WWE universe will come in droves. And a lot of them probably already have Netflix. Like I have Netflix, you have Netflix. But that doesn't mean everybody else has Netflix. There's going to be people out there that are going to be like, whoa, I've never had Netflix before, but now I have a reason to get it. So I think this is a great move for Netflix. I feel like they're going to grow their portfolio. And then I would also say this is going to be one move of many, because don't be surprised, and you mentioned it just a second ago, don't be surprised if they get into the Super Bowl business in the next 5 to 10 years. It would not surprise me if they did that. But I also think before that, I feel like they're also going to do some other live sports. I know they're starting to do those things now, obviously, but I think what they'll do is I think they're going to move into getting the major sports, or maybe the major college sports, for example. I feel like they're starting to trend in that direction, like a CW. So I feel like a lot of these companies, they see the writing on the wall. So I feel like this was a good move by not only Netflix but by WWE as well. And here's the other thing that nobody's talking about: this big contract that's been done. We have superstars that are going to be due for free agency, in the coming next year or so. And guess what? With all this extra money coming in, they can pay top dollar for retaining services of say a Seth Rollins or a Becky Lynch, or Drew McIntyre is going to be coming up on a contract. Sheamus, Finn Balor, or Sasha Banks is asking for a ton of money. Maybe they can justify that now. Or another name, Okada. Okada's a name that's been floating around now. So with all this money that's going to be really flush, not that WWE's not flush with cash anyways, but but adding this amount of money into their portfolio, they can essentially give that back to the superstars, portion of it, and pay some of these top stars to not leave, because I feel like some stars are considering AEW, but if WWE throws a bunch of money at them and says, hey, we can give you this, this, and this, they're more likely going to stay. So that's the other side of it as well that people need to start talking about.
What I think is really creative about all of this stuff, and it kind of reminds me of WWE on Peacock or WWE Network in general, where before they had to earn your business, your pay-per-view dollars were spent the day of the show. So they were up until 8 o'clock Eastern time in the U.S. trying to sell you that pay-per-view, which now they've already sold it. I already bought WrestleMania. I'm going to go to WrestleMania, but I've already purchased it at my house. It's going to be playing at my house. I already paid for, but yet I'm not even going to be here. That's the business that they're in now. They have the assured money. Everybody that's in the stadium at WrestleMania, could you imagine that everybody in the stadium at WrestleMania 19, for example, all bought it on pay-per-view back at their house, so they're giving them the money twice? Because that's what we're doing nowadays. I'm paying my Peacock subscription, but I won't be, and I'll be giving them ticket money, and I'll be giving them the money to watch it on television, which is crazy. And it's part of this Netflix deal, is having that money up front. So to be honest with you now, WWE might actually be a little less interested in the ratings, not as much as Netflix will be. And maybe we could start seeing things like Netflix kind of running in control in the shots a little bit, kind of saying, what they want. We've talked about this before with Fox, making some sort of play with SmackDown being on Fox, and making sure Roman Reigns and some of the big time stars are on the program that they paid for. So Netflix is paying $500 million a year for this program. So WWE's already got the money. That's the thing. If WWE had a year where the crowd looks like AEW and the ratings are down, WWE makes the same as if the ratings are up. So they've already got the money. It's on Netflix now to keep the product the way it is.
Here's the other thing too. Here's the other aspect of it, and you made me think about it while you were talking right there. Netflix, you can go more of a non-rated version. You can be more. I'm not saying they're going to go NC-17 or anything like that kind of stuff.
They'll go whatever, though, I think is more positive, because I don't necessarily know if they're going to go the more violent route, if that's not the I feel like is going to bring in the most.
I do feel like, to an extent, I feel like they can almost. I mean, I know some of the things they did in the Attitude Era is probably not acceptable these days. Let's be honest. I think that's kind of an obvious thing. But I would say in another way, they could also be almost. They could be. This will sound bad. Attitude light, where it's not as, I guess, provocative as it was back in the Attitude Era, but they can also not have to be in the confines of a USA Network or a Fox Network, for example, where they can be a little more risque, I guess.
I hear what you're saying, but to be honest with you, the world of professional wrestling, WWE specifically, I think all of these deals to me really put to bed the Attitude Era kind of ever coming back because of the fact that look at it. Look the NFL, for example, right? Look at it like that. The NFL isn't going to go back to the hard hitting concussion. You throw the guy out there like it's 1950, and the reason they're not doing that is because they're owned, by Disney, and they want families. You think about it. I talk about this all the time. When in the 1990s, I went to NFL games, stuff like that. There was no Victoria's Secret, Buffalo Bills line. There was no Victoria's Secret Dallas Cowboys wear. You know what I mean? It was guys in the stands, and if there was girls in the stands, they were wearing their boyfriend's or husband's T-shirt, or they weren't wearing any merchandise at all. Now there's merchandise with Mickey Mouse and Dallas Cowboys merged together. And the thing is, the WWE is going that way. WWE is going the way to being this big juggernaut. The ball keeps rolling. It keeps getting bigger. I don't think they're going to try to go towards the niche, soap opera male 90s demographic ever again. Yeah, sure, it was hot. It was great. We loved it. It got really good ratings. But right now, they're thinking about top dollar. They're thinking about toy lines, and that's what they've been doing for the last 20 years, I think.
They could. Here's the thing, and the way I'm thinking of it is Netflix, because they have settings. Obviously, I have Netflix. You have Netflix. They have Netflix Kids. They have the regular Netflix for adults. My thought is they could still do an Attitude Era kind of deal. And I'm not asking them to do what they did with Sable on pay-per-view with the handprints on her chest and things like that. But I feel like they could be a little more edgy. I'm not saying they're going to go full-blown Attitude Era.
So what you're thinking of is like during the Attitude Era and even a little bit after, they used to have like different, like SmackDown was kind of created as a TV PG program from the get-go, and Raw wasn't. And Vince McMahon made a point to say that, like, Raw is on cable, so we treat it differently than SmackDown. And they also still, I think to this day, have those stupid main event and Saturday morning slam shows you can find on like the CW or Fox Kids Club, or, where it's like Sin Cara matches, without any sort of storylines or any sort of edge to them. It's just Sin Cara and, Kofi Kingston, going one-on-one kind of thing in a syndicated format. So they still that is something that they've been doing forever. I don't foresee, the added, I maybe blood in certain aspects. Because again, overall, here's the thing where you might luck out is that, yes, the Attitude Era it's not coming back to a place where it's going to be against the families. But at the same time, we've also known that society norms have changed a little bit to the sense of like family-friendly programming and TV-14 programming of the 90s. Like for, like a good example, like The Simpsons used to be edgy. Now The Simpsons is probably more edgy, but get more socially acceptable. It wasn't edgy. It was just edgy for the time. So maybe you could start seeing that blood in WWE, and it won't necessarily be edgy anymore. So it'll be acceptable, I guess, in the family circumstance. We're not going back to the Attitude Era where we're doing things that are only, offensive or only cater to like this niche demographic. We're going to go back to the Attitude Era, but the difference is it's actually not going to be considered offensive anymore. Like South Park was TVMA for saying shit one time on television, and now they say shit and it's like TV-14 and they play it at 3 p.m. I know you remember South Park when we were growing up had to be on at 10 o'clock or after, and they still were restricted on the words they could say, right? If never could say the F word, never could say anything
That's
like that.
That's why I loved that show back in the day, dude.
Now it's on at 3 o'clock in the afternoon without any warnings, without any, precursors to the show. Now it's TV-14 and they curse more than they ever did before. So, maybe that could be something where, WWE goes back to me, or maybe just TV PG nowadays is the new TV-14 in that sense, the way the world makes me feel like an old man over here. Going back in my day, you couldn't say this. Listen to the radio nowadays and see the things that they don't bleep out. They used to bleep out damn and hell and pot and joint and all these other things, and they don't bleep any of that stuff out from any of the songs anymore like they used to. I think there's a song where there's a song I was listening to recently, and they talk about grabbing a flask, alcohol, and they used to blur it out when it'd be like on the radio, and I don't think they.
It's a little the norms are a little different. Like it's like I do like that's why I called it Attitude Light, because you have to you can't go full on 1998, but you can bring back some aspects of it where I think there is a little bit of an edge to it. So that's kind of what my point was, with it could be like an Attitude Light. So I mean, we'll see what happens. I do think to put a cap on it, I do think the Netflix WWE deal is going to be a good thing. Obviously, the whole thing with The Rock is a great thing as well. So this is a great time to be a wrestling fan. It's been a good stretch, and WWE's been filling the stands. I feel like the crowd's been really good. You're going to be there for Royal Rumble this weekend, so I can't wait to hear how the crowd looks there and how everything looks there. So that's going to be we got a fun stretch coming up.
Put in a quick cap on this. Our Twitter/X voters this past week said when it comes to Monday Night Raw, and this is one thing we didn't discuss about, it's staying on Monday nights. Obviously, we can discuss that a lot closer to the time, if it's going to stay on Monday night. Obviously, that was a big thing. We're talking about football and the NFL. And obviously, in January of 2025, it shouldn't really be a big deal because it's going to kick off right when football is ending. So that shouldn't be a big deal right from the get-go, but maybe end of 2025, 2026, it moves off of Monday nights. But 83% of our Twitter voters think it's going to stay on Monday nights, and 67% actually think when it comes to Monday Night Raw that it is better on traditional television. But so, the only thing I will just say to that is that traditional television is changing, and what is traditional television is changing.
Dude,
so Netflix may not be traditional. Yeah.
Dude, traditional television is dying. So I mean, thank you for all the support. Thank you for all.
I don't think it's dying. I think it's changing because USA is considered traditional television, but in 1965 it wasn't.
It's dying. It's not. We're gonna be a bunch of apps in the next 10 years. I'm telling you right now. That's what's going to happen.
What I'm saying is, in retrospect to that, though, what you're saying is that form of traditional television is dying. What I'm trying to say is that Netflix will just become because what is traditional television? Traditional television is 2 channels back in 1956, right? Cable television isn't traditional television. NBC, isn't traditional. NBC might be traditional television.
Okay, so here's the thing: it's
Fox
not
isn't traditional television.
It's not going to be channels. I'll just say that it's not going to be channels. We're not going to be like here in Syracuse. It's not going to be channel 31 for USA Network on Spectrum. It'll be whatever on Netflix. They'll probably do
the new traditional television, and it may not be today, but when WWE is already there in 2035, it's going to be traditional television. So you won't know the difference come then.
Well, here's the thing, and we're going to be talking about this, many years from now. We're going to go back and be like, man, we saw it coming. I mean, it's like we're gonna, like WWE is going to be ahead of the curve once again. So for me, it's and that again, I appreciate all the love and support and all the votes for our great viewers and listeners and followers. I do appreciate that, but I do disagree. I do feel like they're doing the right thing. It's almost like ripping a Band-Aid off and saying, okay, we've had all these old style. It's like the norms, like the safe bet is let's stay on channel 31 here in Syracuse for the USA Network. No, we can't go on an app. No, you have to evolve. You have to adapt, or you die.
But also, WWE isn't doing anything here. Remember, WWE hasn't done anything. They picked the highest bidder. So, like we talked about throughout this thing, this is all on Netflix's now. So it's not like WWE is going to Netflix and is going to try to make their way there. I remember a couple years ago, the local baseball team here tried to get it off of the radio and going on to like a streaming app, but it was all on them. They had to sell the ad space. They had to promote the app that they created themselves. They had to try to get people to listen and do it, and it only lasted a year. They went back on regular radio, but it was like a thing that they had to do. WWE doesn't have to do anything. If no one watches Netflix, if Netflix has horrible views or whatever, they got the money. They've got the money. So they would be on USA Network if USA offered them what Netflix offered them. They're on wherever they're being offered the most amount of money. So they got offered Fox level money or NBC level money to be on Netflix. So now the responsibility is on Netflix, right? If I buy a Rolls Royce for $6.6 million, it's on me. It's not on Rolls Royce for the car to last the rest of my life. It's on me to make it last the rest of my life because it's my money.
But WWE still has to make sure it's in good hands with Netflix. So that's my counterpoint to that.
Well, yes, they still have to make sure that it's in good hands because, obviously they need their product to keep growing so that they can sell it to someone after Netflix.
Exactly.
So they can sell SmackDown to other people. Yes. So they can sell the pay-per-views. The live audience. They still got to make sure that it's a good enough program so that Netflix doesn't necessarily regret the sale. But I said a lot of the responsibility is now going to be on Netflix. WWE just keep putting out what they're going to put on. Netflix is the one that paid for 10 years for this thing. So they're the ones that got to make sure it doesn't go under.
There's both ends of it. So I think, and because like you said, I mean, WWE, they have to still make sure it's still, it's still a viable relationship, because when this 10 years is up in 2035, I can't believe I'm saying that, 2035, but when it gets to that point, they have to be thinking, okay, by the end of that next contract, are we going to be $1 billion a year? You know what I mean? Because they're essentially doubling their annual money, because they were $250 million with NBC Universal. Netflix is $500 million. So for me, I think by 2035, they're going to be looking at, all right, anybody that's going to buy WWE's rights, you're going to pay $1 billion a year, no questions asked.
I don't know what money will be worth in 2035.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying,
so
like,
far
that's how
in the future. No, I understand. I'm just personally thinking about money in 2035, and it's just, I can't even imagine. I'll be paying $1 billion for a car. Who knows? We have no idea where we'll be in 2035. Right. So far away, but it's crazy. It's WWE's moving to Netflix. They're off the USA Network. They're off traditional cable television for the first time in its existence. Yeah. And as they keep doing, they move into the future. And only time will tell, but we still have about a year before we even have to think about that.
Yeah.